Here.
Here.
Ray.
Here.
Abby. Here. Adriana. Here. Jalen. Okay. Kyrie. Haley. Here. Ankita. Here. Cam. Here. Amani. Here. Will. I'm here. Shira. Here. Yasmin. Here. Aya. Sun. Here. Harrison. Juliana. Here. London. Here. Kalei Aloha. Here. Nicole. Here. Joe. Here. On. Hunter. Here. Sam. Here. V. Here. Lorenzo. Here. Gary. Here. Jude. Here.
All right. You have to say.
It doesn't pertain to anybody online, but they get to hear it anyway. So obviously today is the first day of the presidential election season. I noticed that there are some candidates in the back that we've never seen here before, so welcome in. I just want to reiterate that for the entirety of the election season, ASG and AA cannot be used as a campaigning platform. So no announcements on your campaign or anything can happen in this room. Everything has to happen outside of this meeting. Just wanted to let that be known before, people start making constituent comments or making announcements here in the room. That's all I have to say.
All right. No sign of swearing. Is there a motion to approve last week's minutes? Sam? Is there a second? Nicole? Second. All those in favor? That's everyone? All right. Motion passes. And then guest speaker. Yeah. Yeah.
Wait. Is ready to go. Oh, on. Let me do that for you. I'm so silly. I'm like busy eating when I have a job to do. Okay. Projector on. I don't suppose there's a clicker. If not, I'll just come back and do this. Yeah, I can click for you. Oh, all right. Great. Yeah. Technical. Right. Please wait. You should be able. Yeah. Okay. Slideshow. Right. Okay. All right, and this is for the folks at home, right? All right. Hi, everybody, and hi, everybody at home. So my name is Jennifer Dearden. I'm the Associate Provost. For those of you who may not know me, I've had the honor of presenting to this body once or twice before in my role as one of the Middle States Steering Committee co-chairs, but tonight I am coming to you just solely as the Associate Provost to bring you some updates in in a number of academic realms. So we'll kind of go on to the first thing. So on the agenda, it probably talks about advising, which I will talk about as well, but there was two task forces that were delivered to the Allegheny community in fall of 2022. The first one, the FS task force, went to the faculty since it is curricular in nature. That arrived in September after several months of work that actually began about a year ago. And so just that was primarily to address some the curricular things in our FS program, which is how we address writing, reading, speaking, and listening in our curriculum. And while the FS program and advising are currently linked, as most of you have experienced, right? FS 101 includes the advising component. There were two task forces, each one kind of working separately, but there were, as you'll see, several members of the task forces that were in common, and there was lots of communication between the two. Both task forces use significant research, both into current practices at other institutions, professional resources, past practices at Allegheny, and some surveys, which we'll talk about. But both of them had Allegheny's mission and our institutional learning outcomes at the forefront of their work. Because our goals in both of these were to maintain support for our students to achieve these institutional learning outcomes. And there are current proposals in front of the faculty and various committees kind of moving forward to implement either some of their recommendations or pilot recommendations that I'll be talking about. So really quickly, I won't read all of this for you, but I wanted to just kind of give you the personnel of our task forces. again, so you can kind of see who was in common, and the fact that we had both faculty and administrators on both, since essentially both faculty and administrators are implicated in both of the task forces work, both for the FS program and for academic advising. So first, I'll talk briefly about the FS recommendations. So the FS task force found that the scaffolded structure of our FS program was working very well, right? That students start at the 100 level in FS 101, they move into FS 102 and get more invested in their writing and speaking, and then they move into FS 201 to do disciplinary work in writing and speaking. And so the task force felt very strongly that any potential revision to that program would need to retain such a structure to help students move across what we call the spine of our curriculum, right? That we start in the first year and do writing and speaking all the way through to your senior project. So FS 101, 102, 201, junior seminar, senior project, all of them connecting across your curriculum. So any revisions would need to retain some semblance of moving from introductory level to proficiency or capstone level. As many of you know, there were a lot of curricular restructuring last semester, or last year rather. And so that was a large part of the reason that the FS task force was formed, with this different size of the college, different size of the faculty, those reductions in numbers. We needed to figure out how we could sustain the program in a way that still delivered our curriculum. And so they have recommended revising it to a 2-course sequence. So essentially 1 in the first year, 1 in the sophomore year. This would still connect to the junior seminar and the senior project. And students are still engaging with writing and speaking through topical ideas, right? So faculty can teach on any topic, either in their discipline or something that is just interesting to them. And students can look at writing and speaking things like audience, genre, occasion, and purpose. So things that are kind of universal to writing and speaking across these courses. One of the things that the task force wanted to do is just improve consistency. So like the scaffolding was working very well, but we found from a number of sources that the consistency was kind of hit or miss. That some students were having a really great experience, some students were having not a great experience. But even if it was all great, it was very different, right? So a student in one section of FS 101 or a section of FS 201 would have a very different kind of experience than somebody in a similar section in a different discipline or taught by a different faculty or in a different year. So we really wanted to bring that kind of everybody up to the same level for that. And so part of the recommendations included decoupling the sophomore seminar from majors and minors, so making the sophomore seminar non-disciplinary, or at least not counting towards the major and minor in the way that some FS 201s do and some don't right now. But also including regular professional development for faculty, so helping all faculty have a shared vision of what the courses should and should not do, and having kind of similar types of activities that we can do in those courses. We don't expect anyone to have an identical experience, but there should be a common experience across those courses. So again, the advising task force happened a little bit later, but of course they are linked. So we received a charge from Provost Haddad to review our advising model, right? So the advising model is that right now, first-year students come in and their FS 101 instructor is their academic advisor. And that is usually a change from who they talk to over the summer in their first-year course registration, and then they declare, et cetera. So over the course of a student's life, the student can have 3 or 4 different advisors potentially. And so what we wanted to do is look at that, identify some recommendations to strengthen successful advising across the board, again, thinking about consistency and having a common experience for students. But one of the things this report did was identify an advising mission and learning outcomes. So while advising has been happening across campus for decades, we had never formally defined what advising is for everybody. And so it was kind of difficult for everybody to have a shared vision when we never stated that outright. And identifying learning outcomes, because advising is learning, right? That is part of your learning experience here at Allegheny, and we really wanted to make sure that that was very clear for both students and advisors. But also, now that we have a class dean structure, which is still relatively new, we felt it was important to identify kind of the division of and who shares what advising responsibilities. So there's certainly no one advisor can be all things to all students, and of course, nobody should be. But what we see in this advising structure that we're recommending is more of an ecosystem, right? That a student can have essentially a network of advisors. And so identifying kind of who has the best expertise to advise on what is something that we've included in this report. We did include, as part of our work at the advising task force, a survey of students. So many of you might remember that was last semester. The only people that we included current students and alumni. The only people we did not survey last semester were first-year students, because at the time they'd only been here for about a month, so they didn't really have a lot of frame of reference to answer the questions that we were asking. But one of the things we found was that there's a lot of really good advising happening. In fact, most of the advising that we heard about was good advising, and that the advising relationships were what students are taking with them when they graduate. So the mentor-mentee relationships that they build with their faculty, with their class deans, with their senior project advisor, even though that wasn't actually what we were asking about. But there's a number of places on campus where students are building advising relationships. And that's the important part that we want to maintain and strengthen and provide opportunity to build. Generally, students are quite happy with it, major advising. So once you declare a major, you're advising there. Students and faculty, however, were not very well aligned. There was a mismatch between how they felt about how FS 101 advising was going. So that first year advising. And then we also surveyed faculty, and faculty felt that they really enjoy advising. They think it's an important part of their work. But as they move through their faculty review processes, as they go to up for tenure and pre-tenure, that they feel it's important to talk about advising, but they don't know how. And there's not really a lot of guidance for faculty to talk about their advising work. So our advising recommendations. So again, thinking about this idea of consistency and providing space for advising relationships to happen, to provide a shared vision of our advising mission, so everybody has a common experience. These recommendations are, the first one is that first-year advising at least, should be decoupled from FS 101. And instead, the advisor that you see as a pre-matriculant, basically in the summer before you come to Allegheny, that person will be your advisor until you declare. Basically, that early connection to your academic advisor can stay for basically your whole first year, or until you decide to declare. And that provides a little bit more stability for students, gets them engaged with their advisors a little bit earlier, as opposed to, I meet with you just once and then I never see you again, right? Even though that's actually, we heard that's not often the case. Some students really connect with their summer advisors. For the moment, we've decided to call these exploratory advisors. So I think our report might still call them pre-major advisors, so we've kind of changed the name a little bit here and there. But right now we're going with exploratory advisors. But again, we wanted to provide this space for where students could meet with their advisors, right? Where they can build this relationship. So if it's not an FS 101, we are creating an advising lab. So basically a 1 credit, once a week course, 1 course in the fall, 1 course in the spring. This would be a time that your advisor meets with all the advisees in their group. It's also a time to meet with class deans for first year programming. And again, this would be 1 credit, taken credit, no credit. And if the faculty adopt it formally, then it would be a graduation requirement. That would be part of the 128. We are not advocating increasing the number of credits for graduation. There was something else I was going to add about that. But particularly since if the FS revision goes through and we have only 2 courses instead of 3, taking advising out of FS 101 provides more space for the curriculum in the FS program and also provides more space for our advising. So I think my last slide is questions. So I'm happy to take questions. And I don't know if I can write things down because I want to. There will also be some stuff going out tomorrow via email. There'll be some a feedback form going out tomorrow. So I do not have my glasses on, so I can't read. Oh, good. Okay.
I just had a question. I think the idea of the implementation of a consistent advisor
Mhm.
throughout the summer and into the transitional period, getting into higher ed is definitely helpful as far as navigating all the systems and structures.
Mhm.
I just had a specific question that you might not really answer for it. If you don't that's totally
You can try me.
So this past year there was a removal of the FS programs, for civic community engagement
Mhm.
cohorts. There was a removal of the FS program that would connect. I think in specifically the case of the Bonner program,
Mhm.
in previous years Bonners would have classes their FS would be with other Bonners,
Mhm.
and they would share the same advisor. Is this I was not able to get a clear answer on why that was discontinued, because
Mhm.
that was part of my experience as a Bonner. And
Right.
Do you know if there's any connection between this decision to have this different advising model, because I do want to say that I think that having that FS
Mhm.
structure was one of the most helpful measures to transition into
Right.
college.
So the first thing I will say is no, the cohort stuff was not connected to this at all. So I also served on the cohort task force, which is a separate group altogether. And so we have been in discussions with some of the basically the leaders who have done some of these coursework. There's also the STEM cohort. So we've spoken with them about how their work kind of aligns with potentially the new model. But basically, the upshot is that we don't see, even though it wouldn't necessarily be part of FS 101, there would still be opportunity to have that advising time and that cohort time. So when cohorts are reinstated, and again, that's a separate topic that I don't have the timeline on, but when they are reinstated, there will still be some opportunity for the group to meet as a group.
So you mentioned that faculty would like to see advising as maybe something in their tenure interviews.
Mhm.
Is there a form that advisees or something coming out down the line similar to RSEs that advisees could use to fill out feedback on their advisors? Because I have a lot of positive feedback from my advisor, and she's not tenured, so
Right.
I would love to provide it if that would help.
So that is going to be part of what faculty council will be looking at in the coming months, right? So that would be a fairly large change to our faculty handbook. That's not to say that it won't happen, but probably yes would be something like that. I couldn't give any kind of definitive answer to that, but one of the things that we include as part of our report is the need for assessment of advising. And so essentially, some of assessment of advising includes kind of essentially, pulse surveys, student feedback of some kind. And so potentially, but there are certainly other ways that you can support your faculty going up for tenure if advising if we don't have that in place by the time it's time.
One of the questions that came up for me was the credit, no credit graduation requirement courses for the 101 and the 102.
Mhm.
How does that work if you declare as a freshman, like I did?
Mhm.
Do you still have to take these advising lab courses your sophomore year? And if you do, then who are you taking them with?
Okay, so the advising classes would only be your first year. So it'd be your first semester is in the fall, second semester in the spring, and then you're done with the advising classes. And so for most first year students, they would not be declaring until they're at least partway through that advising that second semester, right? They will have started. So there are some details that we're still working out, particularly with the registrar's office. So for example, if a student needs to take a leave and gets, essentially what we call off sequence. So we're working out some of the details on some of those things because those are very good questions, right? If a student needs to take a leave, maybe they come back after having had some other courses at other institutions. So there's a lot of details that we need to figure out in that regard. But we also have talked about the fact that we don't want to make the system so complicated that nobody can figure it out. So that's something we are working on once we get to the point where this would be in front of the faculty for a permanent vote. So we do plan to implement this in the fall as a pilot. So we'll have some essentially what we call special topics courses. And then we'll propose these in the kind of more typical governance fashion where we kind of send them up for 2 readings in the faculty floor. And so that would happen in the fall after we've had some time to kind of review how things are going.
I know me and Chloe have both attended the meeting and read the extensive document of
Mhm.
the academic outlines. We brought up a couple of concerns for me and the rest of the committee.
Mhm.
Do you have any plan on addressing those concerns? The frequency of the meetings and
So in terms of how often the advising lab would meet, that's once a week. So that's our plan for that. The one I forgot to take notes at the meeting last time, so I might need to circle back with you guys on some of those things. But one of the things I think I did remember you asking was whether it had to be credit, no credit. And so we're certainly going to go back and talk about whether that's the best option for students or not, and whether there would be an advantage to having it graded versus credit, no credit. So
my concern is more with the frequency of the meetings. I feel like this is just like personal opinion, but I feel like at some point you're gonna run out of things to talk about. The meeting or
yeah, Yeah. So we're going to be setting up some curricular. So there'll be an advising leadership team is another recommendation that I didn't include on these slides here. So they'll be designing the curriculum, but the advising leadership team has no shortage of topics to talk about for these. So some of these meetings will be with the first year class dean. So there'll be first year programming as part of that. So currently the first year class dean has 3 sessions a semester. So if you think about it, if the class meets 14 times and there's 3 sessions per semester, that's down to 11. Some of the once a week meetings could be set aside for 1-to-1 time. So some of it might be, all 15 advisees in a room. Some of it might be, all right, I'm going to meet with 5 advisees today. And, next week we'll meet with another 5 advisees. So there's a variety of things, but we do have learning outcomes that we will ask advisors and students to meet. So
my concern mostly is how the credit system is logistically going to work.
Mhm.
Because we have a credit limit now, so I would worry that would take freedom away from the students. I know my second semester, I took 5 courses,
Mhm.
and if I had to have that 1 credit course, I would be 21 credits.
Right.
And have to pay.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering how you're going to ensure that students have the freedom to take all of those courses.
Yep.
Without having to worry about going over 20 credits.
Yes, absolutely. And faculty raised that question as well. And we are giving these very specific course numbers, and those course numbers will be excluded from the overload fee. So yes, a first year student could take 21 credits, but if their 21st credit is essentially, LS 107 or whatever it is we decide to make it, overload fee for that. That course is excluded in both semesters.
I guess in comparison to other schools, Allegheny is definitely not a selling point, but it is a selling point in admissions. You talk about the FS sequences going up to the junior seminar into the eventual senior comp. You know the spiel.
Yeah.
So I guess the bigger question is getting rid of one of the FSs. Is there any fear that maybe students, especially because of students are after coming out of the COVID pandemic, high school students just are not as prepared as college? Is there any fear that getting rid of even if it maybe didn't seem that intensive, but a writing and another writing and speaking seminar might undermine the value of a whole of Allegheny education
Mhm.
because students maybe be thrown to the wolves a little faster, and
Yeah.
Especially because I would assume the rigor of Allegheny academics is not going to change no matter how the FS classes are structured. So
Right.
Can you just walk us through the logic behind that and what the FS committee was thinking around that dynamic?
So it's a tough one because so all right, let me back up a little bit. So I'll start with some numbers, and I'm pulling a little bit from the top of my head, but so right now, on average, Allegheny College offers each academic year about 85 FS courses total. So that's FS 101, 102, and 201. So that's across both semesters. It's about 85 courses a year. It's a little bit less this year because of our smaller first year class. And that, given the fact that we have fewer faculty this year than we've had in prior years, that's becoming very challenging to get enough faculty to staff it. And so the academic program review that happened last year kind of intimated that the structure of 3 courses was just, an obstacle that we couldn't overcome. So we started taking a look at it. That brought about the FS task force, and kind of it came to the same conclusion that staffing was a significant concern in terms of getting enough faculty to teach all these courses. And so in terms of the curricular structure, probably won't get quite as much curriculum in 2 courses as we're getting in 3. So we gain a little bit back when in the removal of advising from FS 101. So we will have 4 full credits of writing and speaking as opposed to 4 credits of writing and speaking and advising in that first semester. So we'll get some of it back, and we're changing some of the focus of the sophomore course. Since it won't be disciplinary in structure, we can focus more on the transferable skills. So one of the things that the FS program has really tried to elevate, and what we really need to continue working on, is the idea that writing, speaking, reading, and listening can happen in any discipline, right? And I think that seems kind of like, well, duh. But we tend to get really focused on what my discipline does, right? So this is how, a language instructor does it. This is how a biology instructor does this, or a biologist writes and speaks. And we get to that, into the FS 201, and we get pretty early. And so by decoupling that from the major, we can focus on the things that are transferable. So what I talked about earlier, this idea of audience, occasion, purpose, and genre. So these are all learning outcomes of the existing FS sequence, and they will remain learning outcomes of the whatever we revise it to be, because those are the things that are applicable in any discipline, right? So if you have a stronger grounding in understanding how to write for a specific audience at a specific occasion in a specific genre, right? Having more work in that will make it easier to transfer that across disciplines. So that's kind of what we're hoping for with the 2 course sequence. We won't have as much writing and speaking time, but we also, we know that students are getting some writing and speaking in their other introductory courses. But what FS does specifically is writing and speaking instruction. So rather than just say you have a paper assignment, right? The FS courses and the revised FS courses are going to instruct you and help you create that writing assignment, and also include iterative feedback, right? So the revising process is critical to the course structure. And again, that's transferable no matter where you go. So I hope that helps a little bit.
So I have a couple questions. So would separate faculty be hired specifically to teach these courses? Okay. I feel like adding addition, I don't know. I feel like there's just constant restructuring of the school and the way that they want to advise students, help students, and it's never it doesn't last more than a year or 2. And so that would maybe be my only criticism. It doesn't feel like it would be long lasting.
Okay.
But additionally, will other writing courses be required then for students to take? So no, all of the writing will then be done in their intro courses in theory.
Well, Well, right. So all the writing instruction, right? So, if you take a 300 level class in poli sci, you're probably going to have some writing and maybe a presentation. But in terms of things that are writing and speaking specific, no, it's just those at the moment proposed two. So that's all we're asking for there. When you asked about not long lasting, were you asking about the advising
I
or?
feel like the advising, like in
Mhm.
terms of like Nicole mentioned,
Mhm.
in terms of like having enough topics. I get that you're gonna hire specific people that have experience with doing this, but it's just
Mhm.
like what breadth of topics can keep students interested, especially students at so many varying levels
Mhm.
of experience and exposure.
Right.
How can you keep them engaged in like a universal way? That's my thought. And then also, I actually think it's important a little bit to have like those FS classes the way they were structured in terms of like having specifically like the writing and speaking component, because for example for me in my course of study, I'm only talking about myself here, is that like I'm in computer science, so
Mhm.
in that I don't really have to do a lot of like traditional writing as you would see it in other disciplines. It's
Mhm.
more technical writing. It's more less opinion based, more this is what this does because of this.
Mhm.
So having it had exposure to those courses as they were gave me that leg up in terms of like, okay, I can talk the technical stuff, but I can also speak about my opinion in a very like analytical way and like, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's just my thought.
Yeah.
So I just don't know. Maybe it's just because it's new, but
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
for what it's worth, I mean, the FS leadership team has said to the faculty that 2 courses is not going to be robust as 3. Like, I mean, we're going to do the best that we can. Right? We're going to design those courses to cover as much material and create the scaffolding on like those academic outcomes. But we'll never fit as much material in 2 courses as we do in 3. But so we acknowledge that, but again, our staffing pressures are also very, very real. So, but in terms of the I just want to speak briefly about the long lasting thing with the advisors. One of the reasons that we wanted to create this kind of 2 course, right, one in the fall and one in the spring, is to provide opportunity for students to connect with their advisors in the spring semester. We heard several times in our student survey and from faculty as well that it was very hard to connect with their advisor once they left FS 101. And sometimes it was not for lack of trying, but it was just, there was not that regular opportunity to see your advisor anymore. And so that's one of the reasons we wanted to extend this across the academic year, the first year, so that you maintain some connection with your first year advisor.
I think that's part of learning though, like having to seek out your advisor, Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry. I just had a couple questions. Okay, go ahead.
Lorenzo.
So I'm not super familiar with how students are assigned to those summer advisors.
Mhm.
So could you give me some insight as to how that current system works?
Yeah, so the current system, which I think we only just started last year, which is I think what we aim to maintain, comes partly from admissions, and it's basically an incentive to deposit, right? So the sooner you deposit, the earlier you get for your advising meeting to get registered. Because getting courses registered helps students connect to the institution a little bit sooner, right? But there's not really a particular like I want to sign up with this person, right? There's not. I mean, that's also really hard to do because, right, you don't know any of them, right? So in effect, it's more about the time that students are registering rather than the actual person that they're registering with. And since the advising lab won't have a topic the same way that FS 101 does, they'll all have the same, essentially a shared syllabus. There's kind of less of a worry about what you're going to do with this professor versus that professor. And there was something else I was going to add to that. So I hear your concern. I do. But at the moment, the system is largely about just when your advising time is, as opposed to the person that you actually meet with.
So I do have a question then.
Mhm.
If this new system, when this new system takes effect with the exploratory advisors, do you think it would be possible that sometime during the admissions acceptance process, students could say that, for example, hey, I am really interested in this area. I think it would be cool if I could be put with an advisor in this area. Or say, for example, I like this area, but I would like to be put with an advisor in a different discipline to learn about something else.
Mhm.
And that's not necessarily so that the new advising class can have a subject, but so that people
Right.
are, students are still with people with similar interests.
Potentially, we can certainly think about that. Some of that will come from the fact that there will not always be somebody that aligns with your interests available, right? So we'll have about 25 first-year advisors in a given year, right? So that is, you know, only about a sixth of our faculty, right? And so some of it is people who have the capacity to do the advising, right? So this will be a course that they teach in addition to their regular course load. They'll be compensated separately for it. So there may not be that choice available. So I'll certainly take that feedback back to the advising leadership team, but it may not be possible just based on who signs up in a given year. And we'll have, we will ask people to sign up when they are available to basically be committed to their students for 2 years, right? So if you're about to go on sabbatical, we're not going to assign you a new crop of first year students, for example. But one of the things that we heard, and I'm kind of reading in the subtext of your question, we heard in the survey was that students felt they couldn't get accurate advising from somebody who wasn't in the same discipline. And that's just patently not true. So I'll try and kind of, hopefully break the stigma there. Right. First year advising is about exploring, helping students acclimate to college. And there is no evidence to suggest that if I'm a STEM major, that I'm not going to be properly advised if my advisor is not also a STEM person, right? So an English faculty can absolutely advise an intended bio major and vice versa. And so that's one of the things we need to try to kind of bring to the advising learning outcomes and kind of recognizing what advising is. Okay. All right. Yep. Thank you very much. Thanks.
For this week, I have no new business, and I just no new business this week, and we just have $2,426.50 coming out of general for the pre-health club so that they can get some club t-shirts, Jade so that they can have some food for their technical crew after their performance, and USIT so that they can fly to St. Louis. And yes, I did verify that it was the cheapest option before approving it.
Do you want me to do the vote? All right. Is there a motion to approve this week's budget as a slate? Gary. Is there a second? Shira. All those in favor? That's everyone. All right. Motion passes. Jalen's on here. So Kyrie, who is?
No, I literally just said I had Jalen's minutes. She is not able to come tonight, but tomorrow her and the Silk committee are going to be meeting to continue revising the Silk Constitution to be up for review to rules. And that's all she has. Kyrie, she has any business. So Cam.
So we had the HIV testing tabling on Monday. Everything went well. I am still working on the proposal for the student life survey. That should be done very soon. And then Amani will talk a little bit about what's going on with dining.
Okay. So tomorrow we're gonna have our meeting in Pelletier. I'll be sending an email to the committee on like the location and the time. And we're just gonna talk about like the agendas and things that we want to push with the dining committee when it comes to like how the meal swipes are working now and stuff like that. And also like possibly tabling for the student life survey when it comes out and stuff like that.
Sorry. It was me. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Really?
Okay. So tabling of the reusable bags starts tomorrow from 11 to 1 through Friday in the CC. I will not be there Thursday. I think Veronica will be able to open up the ASG office to get Yasmin the bags on Thursday. She is currently the only one signed up for Thursday, so if you want to keep her company, there's spots for that, and the link's right there. And then I also picked up some extra supplies to hand out. I think that they are silverware from Kelly Bolton. And that's all.
Now, back over to Court.
So somebody last week requested the updated service and rep hours form, so I've attached that on there. Let me know if there's any issues with it. It should have the same permissions and setup as last semester. So, and other than that, I'm setting up a meeting with my committee and Veronica to start planning things for spring formal. So no big news on that yet, but we're hoping to meet this week. So hopefully next week I'll have something going on that.
All right, down to Will.
Hey guys, nothing major. Officially ordered the sweatshirts from the Meadville Public Library. We are ordered 92 in total, I believe. So that's great. 3 different colors to be surprised when we eventually table and distribute them. About 2 weeks is the outlook based on shipping. Sounds great. Thanks.
Nothing super major, but the deadline to submit presidential campaigns is officially over. And I said this like probably last GA or a couple of weeks ago, but reminder to cabinet that you are not allowed to endorse any candidates. That means advising, assisting, etc. Doing so will get you in trouble. Anyways, I reached out to the campus for moderating the presidential debate on March 14th, and I have yet to hear back, but that'll be in my minutes when it happens. So, yep, that's pretty much it.
Abby.
Hi everyone. So, rules committee, if you could stay after GA, that would be great. And then just want to say to thank you to everyone who submitted their candidacy platforms. I'm looking forward to see you all campaigning and, seeing what you have to help out the student body with, and best of luck to you all. And then down here is like the list of the candidates. And then I also included a link to a Google form that you can share with like your friends or other students across campus. It basically is a form that you can submit questions on for the ASG debate for March 14th. And then I will get that up on the social media soon with the help of Kyrie, as well as having flyers around campus. And yeah, if you have any other questions, like feel free to email me throughout like the campaigning/election process, or email Ankitha, and we'll be happy to help.
Hi everyone. So I've linked a few of the reports from some of the committees, and I've also linked DSpace Allegheny, which is something I only learned today as well. And you can essentially find all of the committees, all of their past meetings, as well as current ones. Well, it's not like being up to date to the T for all of the committees, but it's within a week or so. So with like the most recent one is like for today, and the one that is furthest back is the last meeting in last semester. So it varies from committee to committee in terms of how frequently they're uploading them there, but that is the minutes of the meeting, like the official minutes of the meeting is what's uploaded there, not our student representative notes. What I've sent here is the student representative notes, and the official minutes of the meeting. But yeah, if you guys have any questions regarding that, feel free to shoot me an email, talk to me, whatever. Yeah.
You can also find comps on DSpace if you need inspiration. Um, so this week me and Yasmin had an interview with the campus about senior week, so we'll probably be seeing that soon in the paper. We also are figuring out our finances for senior week, and right now in the senior week fund, there's about 4,000.
I'm not sure actually what's.
Well, there's nothing in there right now, but maybe around $4,800
So that, and also like we're gonna have to charge like about $25 per person, like through ticket sales, and that's where like half of our funding is going to come from. But we are going to need about $8,000 more from ASG to fund what we want to do, and we can move that from the surplus fund to the senior week fund, or we can just get those funds through finance requests, whichever is going to be easier for Adriana and for ASG. So we can talk about that, or we can do that later.
I also want to say that the $25 tickets will be covering like the entirety of senior week. It's like a one time and it gets you into like every single event that we'll be having. And yeah, I don't think we've spent too much money on senior week in the past couple of years because of COVID. So we do have a little wiggle room in the budget from what I understand. Yeah.
Like the extra $5,000 to $8,000, you want to get you an idea of what the money is going.
Yeah, we have a set, relatively set schedule of events. There's a little wiggle room on what days each event will be held on, but we have events and plans for what to do with the money specifically.
Motion to open a 2-minute discussion about the money. Is there needs to be a second?
Yeah, there needs to be a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
I just have a question. I'm not very familiarized with what is senior week, so I don't know if you can tell us a little bit about like what it is, what you're planning on doing, and like how this works essentially.
So basically in the past it's been about like 3 to 5 days of like celebration stuff. Like after the last day of finals in the spring, everybody leaves except for the seniors, and they stay until graduation, and up until like that time up till graduation, there's a bunch of events and like honors stuff and dinners and all that, but we get to plan like a bunch of events for the campus, and that's basically like in place of the events that we're planning this semester. This is for the senior class. And I guess, do you want to know like what specific events we have? Okay. Yes.
Off the top of my head, my favorite one is the senior gala, which is going to be like a prom kind of thing. There is a bar crawl, late night kins, it's reminiscent of like our freshman year late night kins, a champagne brunch, a Taste of Meadville comp burning block party. We were tentatively thinking about bingo, but I don't think we'll be doing that anymore. A hiking trip, and yeah, the ball, and there's a GFC brunch. So
So traditionally, the senior fund is designated specifically for that. So as opposed to general fund, it is completely separate so that if they run out of money in the general fund, the seniors can still plan their leave.
What is that time? Anyone have a question in the next 7 seconds here?
I don't think we'll run out of money in the surplus fund, so that's why we want to move it to the senior week fund.
you're so quick.
So maybe we can figure out
you the exact we just wanted to broach it. We didn't have to do it tonight.
We'll do that next time.
Yeah.
Well, we'll add in his insight. Just go high. Yeah, that's my favorite.
Oh, do not even worry, Will. We're going all out. Eight.
Well, I'm just adding like
You should have had it during the discussion.
but it wasn't a discussion on the funding. I'm not yet. You know what?
Okay.
He slayed.
All right, class.
We don't- Huh?
24. Yeah, you did.
Oh, I got sleep last night, guys.
Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. So we continue to work with Jonathan May on event details for Junior Appreciation Week. It's going to be like a really good time. So if you know any juniors, please spread the word because it's going to be coming up March time, April time, whichever one. We're also brainstorming a career like panel type event with the Ideas Center, specifically Lisa. And we're just trying to get like a lot of occupations to be on the panel just so that, juniors can come to that for more information about, careers that they might be looking into joining in the future or what they're leading into. Is there anything else? All right.
So as Will mentioned, the collaboration about the public library is coming up soon. Excited about that. We're figuring out the details for the soccer game. So far, we have the confirmation of class of 2024 that they want to collaborate with us. If you guys are interested, please let me know. You can email me or contact me, whatever. And we're working on more events for the semester. And happy Valentine's Day for everyone.
Our Therapy Dogs event from last week was a major success. Look forward to an announcement for when the next one's going to be. Our collaboration with the class of 2025 and the Community Relations Committee is underway, so look forward to that. We're working to recruit students for Gator Day Planning Committee for next year. If you know someone who would be interested in working, we're looking for about 9 to 10 students to be involved with that process, meeting about once a month. Please send them my way or to Dean Jonathan May for more information and logistics of joining that process. We're also working on continuing to work on more events, including working on sending out information relevant to first-time tax filers in coordination with financial services and the CFO.
You wanted to say? No. All right. I have nothing to report, so over to you.
Alrighty, I have 3 things ranked from happy to sad. So we'll go with happy first. The food pantry is restocked. Thanks to donations from the staff advisory committee and also from Matt Stinson. So hopefully we have enough to stock throughout the semester. Alrighty. Next Friday, February 24th, is it 5 or 6 Ukrainian students? 6 Ukrainian students are holding an event in the CC lobby that is supposed to talk about the year anniversary of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And they're going to be telling their stories, and there's going to also be a diploma monument thing of all of the Ukrainian soldiers who were not able to graduate because they were fighting for their country. So that is next Friday. Do we have time? Time will be announced, but I really encourage everybody to show up and attend and show support for our fellow students who are having very hard time this academic year. So there's that. And lastly, by now, many of us have heard of the school shooting that happened at Michigan State University last night. I know that it provides a lot of anxiety to college students because typically with us being so spread out on campus, stuff like this doesn't happen a lot. I think mine and a lot of other people's thoughts and hopes lie with the people who are critically injured in the hospital. And I know that the Dean of Students office is working on updating our own personal emergency policies. So hopefully those will be updated soon. That's all I have.
Right. No new business. Any more constituent comments? Nope. All right. Trey, do you have anything you want to say?
Yeah, it's gonna seem really weird after that whole thing. If you or anyone you know or your constituents have dishes that belong to Brooks, return them. If you want to have cups and forks and spoons and plates, return them. If we're gonna have a dish amnesty return, please return them. Yes, can.
Are there constituents here for a new club?
Yeah.
So that should be under new business?
Point of information, did the new club respond to the parliamentarian or attorney general?
What is that?
The email that, and I'm gonna keep this sent out.
It was said, it said, please show up at the street today at 7:30 to have the club be voted on. And so I was not aware I had to respond to the
Can we add the Constitution for review? Ankita, Abby, do you guys have the Constitution to be added to the minutes for review?
They won't tackle you if you try and bring a dish back in.
The amount of Brooks dishes in the GFC.
They just migrate there.
The giant cup is in Brooks.
Yeah.
Are we almost there?
Yeah, sorry. Where do you want it?
Under new business.
Yep. That's a
Do
great
you
thing.
want to use this opportunity to give us like a minute kind of spiel on what the club is and why you want it to be a thing?
So I'm hoping to create
That'd be a great thing.
I'd like to create a club called Lift Up that aims to create a more inclusive space for people who have been kind of historically pushed out of strength-based sports to pursue that and kind of find community in that. And yeah.
Thanks. How would this be different than like the club and intramural like sport organizations that we already have on campus?
This would focus kind of more on kind of like how to make sports kind of like more inclusive for those people. Like I know that like I've talked to a lot of folks that do not feel comfortable just going into the weight room because it just feels scary, and there are not very many resources to learn how to like use the squat racks, and so I kind of want to make that more accessible for beginners, and then for people that like might not necessarily have friends that they can be like, hey, like, can you teach me about this thing? And then I don't believe that any of the intramural sports have any kind of discussions on how to make sports more inclusive and get rid of some of like the issues within sports where like sometimes people encounter homophobia and those types of things. So I'd like to have specific programming on that.
So I have a question. Is it gonna be like an advising kind of thing? Like, what are your activities gonna be? Are they gonna be like learning in a classroom? Are they like, are you guys planning on going to a gym and doing that? Like, what kind of things do you plan on doing?
I was thinking kind of a mix of both. I think it would be like I was talking to Jared Litterin about when the weight room is most empty, and I was thinking of saying like kind of doing like a club event where the club could go to the weight room at hours where it's usually pretty empty, and then kind of get instruction on how to use those machines, and then also have other types of activities where we have more discussion based or lecture based kind of meetings.
Motion to vote on the Constitution of Lift Up as of slate.
Sure.
Second.
All those in favor? Right, that is everyone. Perfect. Motion passes. You need to come back. Oh. What? Okay. You need to come back for a second round of voting next week, and hopefully we'll have everything set up this time, so it should be flawless.
Okay, is there anything that I need to do on my end in order to make that run smoothly?
I don't think so. Is that correct? Yeah, nothing else.
Okay.
Did we just have a motion to vote on the Constitution, or was that to vote?
Motion to not to approve.
You need to read it.
Yeah.
Okay. Who should I? All right.
Thank you.
All right. Is there a motion on the floor to approve the club constitution for Lift Up? Shiro.
Motion to vote on the Lift Up Constitution as a slate.
All right.
Maybe the Lift Up Constitution?
To approve.
Yeah. Is there a second? Sam? All those in favor? All right. Perfect. Flawless. Amazing. All right.
Would have really sucked if that failed.
Yeah.
You just told him it passed.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nicole.
All right. Motion passes.
Also, I just have a little point of information about Robert's rules. You only have to say as a slate if there's multiple things to vote on instead of voting on them individually. Just to clarify.
It's amazing. All right. Is there a motion on the floor to close this GA? Yasmin? All right. Is there a second? Lennon? All those in favor?
Cool. Ready? Go eat.
Yeah. Oh, yep. Motion passes.